For years, half the community of Tarkov players complained about wipes, and the other half seemed to love them. Every few months, you'd lose your stash, lose your progression, and start all over again. Then Tarkov finally launched with a permanent character and no mandatory wipes. Problem solved, right? Well, not exactly, because now Battlestate Games is bringing back wipes, kind of, but we'll get into that. If you've been away from Tarkov recently, here's what's been changing. Essentially before 1.0, there was wipes every few months or roughly 2 to 3 times a year, and these wipes came with major updates to the game. Well, with the 1.0 launch, they kind of got rid of the whole wipe system, and the permanent character system came out, and that's permanent for PvE and PvP. But now BSG is in talks to create a seasonal character. They've already disclosed that this is going to happen, they just want to capitalize upon it to create a seasonal character and bring that wipe feel back to the game that a lot of people did love. Permanent characters do keep everything, and they do not have to wipe any of their progress with this update, and seasonal characters will restart every season and participate in a special seasonal progressions-based system. This comes with negatives, positives, and global changes per season, that you the player will decide on what negatives and what positives that you will have for that season. The global changes will probably take effect for everybody, but the negatives and positives are what's important. To understand why there's a lot of people excited about the new seasonal character system is you have to understand what made Wipes Day so special. Early wipe fights would actually bring in hilarious situations when it comes to low gear combat, using pistols, shotguns were more prevalent, or just random bolt actions you would just kind of find in hopes to one-shot somebody. Everybody was, well, essentially poor. Every item mattered and every quest was like the niche step to get better gear. Every upgrade felt very important. Trying to get those traders leveled up as much as you could and your hideout leveled up was awesome. For many players, Wipe Day was, well, what made Tarkov. But not everyone thinks seasonal characters are the answer to the game or the wipe system that BSG is trying to introduce again because a lot of people are asking for it. Some players wanted permanent progression specifically because they were tired of starting over, or they just didn't have the time on their hands to keep playing the game. Others are worried about splitting the player base. Will permanent modes stay populated? Will seasonal mode become the only mode that matters? Nobody really knows, and that's the question, because you do have 3 different game modes at this point when this releases. You have the PvE players, the PvP permanent players, and then the seasonal PvP players. Now, mind you, the seasonal events, the positives, negatives, and global changes will determine a lot of people from either deterred to play or excited to play that sort of season. So it's something to keep in mind that it's going to change the fluctuation, and it is something that I'm personally worried about as well because you're splitting the player base across 3 different modes. Now mind you, PvE players that love PvE will probably stick with PvE, so we're not really worried about those guys, but the PvP players as a whole is going to split really bad. Are you going to go into raids and have quests to kill PMCs, but your raids are kind of dead with 1 to 2 players in it, and you're gonna have 10-minute queue times just to get into raid because really nobody's playing either one permanent or seasonal at that point in time? Who knows? I guess we'll have to see. But I do know that there's going to be a large amount of people trying out this seasonal character at first. The real question is, how is it going to look mid to late season or wipe when it comes to the player base? The interesting thing is that players aren't really arguing about wipes as a whole. They're arguing about what Tarkov should be. Should Tarkov be a long-term MMO where progression lasts forever, or should it be a seasonal experience where everybody starts fresh? Because those are 2 different games, completely different games, right? You have the long-term MMO experience with the permanent characters, which is what BSG brought with the 1.0 release, which they thought the game was going to be when they were developing it as a whole. But so many players fell in love, especially with the content creators, with the wipe system. That's kind of what made Tarkov so funny, and it made early on gear relevant to the game. As early on gear, scavs, as you can see, when you loot them, their gear kind of, well, sucks. And when you're playing a permanent character, you're not going to use it probably mid to late wipe, if you want to say that, in the permanent character side of things. When you have your hideout fully upgraded and you have large amount of gear, you're never going to really care about what the scavs have besides hoping they have keys in their pockets, right? So this kind of creates a weird dilemma. You have the long-term experience already with the permanent character, and now they're wanting to bring in the wipe system because so many people are asking for it. So how is this going to work? Personally, I think Battlestate is trying to solve one of the biggest arguments Tarkov has ever had, and they're trying to give permanent players a home and seasonal players a fresh start. Question is whether both systems can coexist without one eventually becoming more popular than the other, because it's going to completely take away the whole environment or vibe of Escape from Tarkov. When you're loading into a raid and you're sitting there for a 12-minute queue just to have 1 or 2 people in your raid, it's kind of frustrating. And I know there is a set required amount of players that need to be in the raid in order for you to join, but when you have the timer go above that 10-minute mark when you're trying to queue, it does just kind of throw you into raids that may be dead. And I kind of feel like this is going to happen to either game mode or even both game modes if players get really frustrated with BSG's changes. So I guess this is the part where I'm going to lean on you guys, the community. What do you think? Would you rather play a seasonal Tarkov and have wipes brought back with 2 to 3 wipes / seasonal resets every year, or just stick with permanent Tarkov? Is it great to have both options? I don't know. And do you think Battlestate finally found the solution for a lot of these issues that people are complaining about when it comes to that system? I think this is a great idea that BSG has, but I don't know if having 3 different game modes for their one game is the best idea for the player base, because it is going to be very split. So what do you guys think? Lighthouse is getting a massive overhaul as well, and if you regularly run this map, some of your favorite routes and strategies are probably going to change. One of the biggest updates is the player spawns. There will be new PMC spawns near the train yard and the northern checkpoint while adjusting existing spawns across the map. The goal is to reduce the heavy congestion that often happens on the southern side of the lighthouse at the start of the raid, which is because the map is linear. The chalet area is also being redesigned into a major hotspot. New fortifications and UN roadblocks are being added, which means the area could become one of the most contested locations on the map for both PvP and the loot. Speaking of UN roadblocks, we're also getting a brand new faction, United Nations Troops, which is the UN soldiers, and they will remain neutral towards both Bear and USEC PMCs, but they'll actively hunt scavs across the map. However, if you decide to kill them, you'll lose reputation with Peacekeeper, making them a faction that you'll need to think twice about engaging. Water treatment plant is having a major change as well, with rogue spawns being moved away from the treatment plant and closer to the chalet area. The water treatment plant itself will mostly be populated with regular scavs, which completely changes how players approach one of the Lighthouse most popular locations before. Questing is also getting a few improvements as well, such as the assessment task, which is being reworked to fit the new layout for the map, and the new quest locator system, which is going to help guide players towards those items. Overall, Lighthouse is looking less like a simple update and more like a complete rework. Between the new spawns, chalet redesign, rogue relocation, UN troops, and quest improvements, the map could feel completely different when these changes arrive. But what do you think about the Lighthouse overall? Is this update the map needed, or do you prefer the current version? Let me know in the comments down below. I appreciate you guys taking the time to watch the video in the full extent of it. Please hit that like button and let me know in the comments down below what you think. I read every comment and I'll try to respond as much as I can. Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.